Working with Realtors. Working with Realtors. In times of difficult bank financing, seller financing combined with a third-party note buyer can be an effective solution to selling a property that needs to sell for more cash than a property buyer can provide at closing. This is essentially a simultaneous, or shortly delayed, closing where the seller originates a seller finance note, no prepayment penalty, and a security instrument for the property buyer, and then sells the paper to a third-party note buyer at a discount for a higher yield. The third-party note buyer will buy either the entire note, full purchase, or just part of the note, partial purchase. The full purchase usually has the lower cash to the seller, so many sellers will partially sell their note. When the note buyer receives all of the contracted payments, then the note reverts back to the previous holder. A split purchase is when the periodic payments and the final balloon payment are split between the seller and the note buyer. A split partial purchase is both a partial purchase and a split purchase. A split purchase is recommended instead of a partial purchase to avoid legal issues regarding whether the note was sold or merely pledged as collateral for a loan. You can earn a fee of about 2% to 3% of the property price as a finance consultant to arrange the financing between the buyer, the seller, and a third-party note buyer. You can also get a piece of the note cash flow and maturity, balloon payment, by splitting the periodic payments and balloon payment with the note buyer in a separate agreement. Proposal to note buyer. A typical transaction can be calculated with the WorkingWithRealtors.xlsm spreadsheet. There are mail merge templates provided for generating proposals for the real estate broker, the seller, and for your list of third-party note buyers. This is part of one of the proposal reports generated by the dynamic mail merge templates. As finance consultant, I propose the following financing terms for the property seller, note seller, to accept one seller finance note to sell the property, and then sell the seller finance note to a third-party note buyer after one periodic note payment is received by seller beginning at least 30 days after the closing of the property sale. This is not a price offer or quote, only a recommendation to be considered by all interested parties. Please see definitions at the end of this proposal. A spreadsheet calculated these parameters according to the estimated cost and structure of financing. There may be slight discrepancies in the numerical values due to rounding or truncation by the spreadsheet. Property parameters. Property type, single family. Property lot size 0.38. Property square feet 5,599. Property bedrooms 6. Property bathrooms 5. Property parking 3. Property sale structure for primary wrap note split purchase. Seller finance purchase price $1,080,000. Down payment 10%, $108,000. Primary effective debt 90%, $972,000. Seasoning principal reduction, $1,167.91. Residual unpaid principal balance $970,832.09. Primary wrap note discount $773,732.09. Primary wrap note purchase $197,100, 54.29% ITV. Down payment $108,000. Cash in escrow $305,100. Escrow closing costs 1.25%, $13,500. Real estate broker commission 5%, $54,000. Finance consultant fee 2%, $21,600. Cash out to seller 20%, $216,000, paid at closing. Existing lien remaining on title. Existing debt present value $389,221.56. Existing debt interest rate, 6%. Existing debt maturity term, $307,613. Existing debt monthly service $2,338.25. The seller financing note shall wrap the existing lien. Primary wrap note split purchase. Total monthly net payment 143 times, $1,400, from note buyer. Total monthly payments to seller $200,200, paid over term. Seasoning net payments, $2,879.66, before note sale. Primary maturity payment to seller $222,441.83, paid at maturity. Existing debt principal reduction $81,608.56, paid over term. Existing lien future redemption $307,613, paid at maturity. Cash out to seller, 20%, $216,000, paid at closing. Primary total cash to seller $1,030,743.05. Less total lien redemption $389,221.56. Net cash to seller $641,521.49. Seller financing terms for primary wrap note split purchase. Primary wrap note. Annual percentage rate, 5%. Annual interest rate, 5%. Amortization term, 360. Maturity term, 144. Seller finance purchase price, $1,080,000. Down payment, 10%, $108,000. Primary effective debt 90%, $972,000. Balance due at maturity, $742,197.67. Principal reduction, $229,802.33. Tranche interest paid, $521,576.71. Total periodic payments, $751,379.04, equals 144 times $5,217.91. Maturity redemption, $742,197.67. Total cash paid to note, $1,493,576.71. Down payment, $108,000. Total cash paid from buyer, $1,601,576.71. Monthly escrow taxes, $650. Monthly escrow insurance, $330. Monthly escrow total, $980. Monthly other fees and costs, $100. Monthly other total, $1,080. Monthly debt service, $5,217.91. Total monthly payment, $6,297.91, from buyer. Maturity payment to note seller, $222,441.83. Existing lien future value, $307,613, redeem old lien. Maturity payment to note buyer, $212,142.84. Balance due at maturity, $742,797.67. Primary wrap, split purchase, sources and uses. Down payment, 10%, $108,000. Primary note purchase, $197,100, 54.29% ITV. Total sources, $305,100. Escrow closing costs, 1.25%, $13,500. Real estate broker commission, 5%, $54,000. Finance consultant fee, 2%, $21,600. Total closing costs paid $89,100, paid at closing. Cash out to seller, 20%, $216,000, paid at closing. Existing lien pay down, $0, paid at closing. Total uses, $305,100. Note buyer summary for primary wrap split purchase. Monthly note payment, $5,217.91. Monthly split payment to seller, $1,400. Monthly gross cash flow, $3,817.91. Existing lien debt service, $2,338.25, paid by note buyer. Monthly net cash flow, $1,479.66. Less finance consultant share, $140, 10% split. Note buyer monthly cash flow, $1,339.66, amortizing. Primary wrap note split purchase, $197,100, 8% yield net. Balance due at maturity, $742,197.67. Maturity payment to note seller, $222,441.83. Existing lien future value, $307,613, redeem old lien. Maturity payment gross to note buyer, $212,142.84. Less finance consultant share, $21,210, 10% split. Maturity payment net to note buyer, $190,932.84. Total monthly income to note buyer, $191,571.38, equals 143 times $1,339.66. Total return to note buyer, $382,504.22, equals 1.94 times $197,100. In the example, the property has a purchase price of $1,080,000. There is a buyer who can provide 10% down payment of $108,000. There is an existing lien of $389,221.56, after seasoning, at 6% fixed due and $143 that will be paid down to $307,613 at maturity. Consider the least amount to pay down the existing lien only when the debt is high cost or as an incentive for the lender to allow the conveyance, then subordinate the reduced existing lien behind the newly created note where the new note can wrap the existing lien. The seller receives one seasoning payment of $2,879.66 before selling the note. The monthly payments for the note are $2,338.25. The seller nets $1,400 per month for 143 months, totaling $200,200, plus a balloon payment of $222,441.83. The total cash to the seller is $1,030,743.05. After subtracting the existing lien payoff, the net to seller is $641,521.49. Important, the seller will receive the most cash when deferring paying down the existing lien, because of the difference between an existing low fixed rate debt and the large discount for a high yield note buyer. Keeping the low fixed rate debt in place until the discounted wrap note is paid off, by selling the property again or by refinancing to redeem the balloon payment, is how this strategy works. Subordination of the reduced existing lien is recommended, but not required. The newly created note can wrap around the reduced existing lien. The spreadsheet calculates both the full purchase and a purchase of a second lien wraparound note. In this example, a full purchase is not viable, because the existing lien is too large. A split purchase will work well, especially when there is little or no pay down of the existing low interest debt. The spreadsheet includes calculations for you taking a split of the net cash flow and the net balloon payment. You can see how changing the distribution of cash now, cash over time, and cash later can greatly affect the value of the note, and thus the net cash to the seller. You can greatly increase the amount of cash to the seller by considering flexible financing alternatives. You want a maturity balloon in 8 to 15 years, depending on market conditions for a refinance or a sale. Set the annual face rate to about 4% to 6%, with 25 to 30-year amortization. The significant balloon payment is what makes this strategy work. Also, third-party note buyers are less restrictive on buyer qualifications compared to institutional lenders, especially for a commercial income property with good debt coverage ratio for cash flow. Specify a qualifying due on sale clause in the security instrument, so that the note buyer can qualify as subsequent property buyer. The Seller Note Performance Trust Deed and Buyer Note Performance Trust Deed checkboxes are used for quickly conveying the property title back to the note holder in the event of default after 30 days notice of default, to avoid the delays of the foreclosure process. They insert a clause in the promissory note and security trust deed to that effect. You must have expert legal advice from your attorney for using these options. They can cause serious legal problems when used improperly. Split versus full. The split purchase provides the minimum sufficient cash to the seller to pay off most or all of the existing liens and for cash out. The seller must wait for the split of the balloon payment when the note matures. The seller could also get monthly payments and a reduced split of the balloon payment. That is an installment sale of the note. The full purchase is simply calculated as the lesser of the note buyer's maximum investment to value ratio, usually 70% or less of the property value, and the calculated present value of the cash flow and the balloon payment. Selling a wraparound note. Most sellers think in terms of carrying a secondary note or a wraparound note. They wrap the existing primary debt or they sell the primary note to pay off the existing lien, and then keep the secondary note for cash flow and the future balloon payment. This arrangement produces less cash for the seller compared to selling the wraparound note for a split of the cash flow and the final balloon payment. A note buyer calculates buying a wraparound note either as paying off the first lien, or keeping the first lien and paying only for the effective equity in the junior lien position. Keeping the existing first lien provides much higher yield through leverage for the note buyer. The note buyer that keeps the existing first lien is investing for higher compounding yield. The note buyer that redeems the first lien to move the wraparound note into first lien position is investing for lower amortizing yield. Saving the deal. When a real estate broker or realtor is faced with a client that is asking to reduce the price, or the listing is nearing expiration, or the seller is asking to withdraw the property and just leasing it out, the broker may be able to salvage the deal with this strategy. The seller gets a higher property price now, the broker gets a commission. Based on the higher price, the finance consultant, you, gets a fee, and the property buyer gets financing with an affordable down payment. After sufficiently seasoning the note, the property can be refinanced or sold to pay off the note. Real estate brokers can specify multiple prices, usually 2 prices, in the Multiple Listing Service (MLS) database. The lower price is the all-cash price, which the property buyer provides all cash at closing. The higher price is the seller finance price, for which the seller provides financing. You can specify multiple potential third-party note buyers in the spreadsheet and save it as a template. Then for each subject property, you can prepare proposal letters for the real estate broker, the seller, and for the list of third-party note buyers using the saved mail merge templates. The advantage to you is that you are not searching for sellers or buyers. The real estate broker finds the principal parties. You build your list of third-party note buyers to save in the spreadsheet template, and a list of real estate brokers who specialize in the kinds of properties that fit the investment criteria of your note buyers. Ask the brokers to send a list of properties that they are having trouble selling. For the good prospects, you will need the existing lien balance and a good faith estimate of the closing costs, including the real estate broker's commission. The broker or seller may be reluctant to provide the lien information, so remind them that it is public information and you are trying to help them to sell the property. You are a professional problem solver. Run the numbers and prepare proposal letters for the good prospects.